I'm not dead. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for not killing me, for not posting for so many weeks. I won't bore you with the details, but life just basically decided to drag me out on the dance floor and I don't know how to samba, if you catch my drift. I sincerely apologize for the lack of videos, but I'm back now and I'm ready to cake my pants off, and your girl actually has a backlog for once, so hopefully no more breaks in the future. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this elephant head cake. Please don't slide off the board. So let's just get right into it. So I'm starting out with this little template here, and I'm going to link the one that I use below. I cut that same template out of a piece of cardboard, and this is just going to be the thing that like touches the cake, and I'm not going to ruin my nice template because I only made one. I'm using 9-inch square chocolate cakes, and I'm just Tetrising those together so I can cut out one layer of my template. I've got just the head portion here that I've cut out, and I'm marking out where the ears are going to meet the head. I cut about halfway down, not all the way to the bottom, and I'm using a serrated knife to cut away the ears so that they're just a little more shallow and the head is going to come forward. I want to taper the ears down towards the board, so I'm cutting that at an angle. My cake is chilled, it's not super dry, I promise. And I'm not touching the tops of the ears at all. Once I was done with that, I'm covering the whole thing in a thin layer of chocolate ganache just to lock in all of the crumbs. Using that same template of the head and the trunk, I cut out another layer of cake and I'm placing that on top. I marked out where the eyes are going to sit, and then using my little knife, I'm just trimming down the top of the head, sloping it back, and then cutting out little notches for the eyes on either side. I'm also going to slope the trunk down towards the bottom of the board, so I want it to be a little more thin at the tip of the trunk, if that makes sense. Also, I know it looks weird right now, but I am going to add more to it. It's not just going to be a straight up and down trunk. I ganached that as well, and then I let my cake set up a little bit, and once it had firmed, I added another layer of ganache and just smoothed it out as best I could with my spatula. I'm using modeling chocolate today instead of fondant, and I'm taking these little snakies and just defining the brow bone a little bit around the eye socket. I've colored my chocolate a light gray, and I'm rolling that out between two pieces of parchment paper to about 1/8 of an inch thick. This is just the easiest method for me. If I tried to roll it out on the bare surface, it's just gonna stick and be a huge mess, so this way is a lot easier. Before it starts to firm up, I'm draping that over my cake and then working quickly to smooth it down into all the nooks and crannies. It absolutely does not need to be perfect at this point. I'm just trying to get the main features defined, and then I'm cutting away the excess with my knife. Now on to my favorite part, the detailing. So with my balling tool, I'm going to start defining the separation of the head and the ear because we want the ear to be set back. With the snaky of that modeling chocolate, I'm starting to build out the top of the ear. They've got like a very thick ridge, so think of the top of your ear and how you have that cartilage there. Elephants have that as well. So I'm just building that out so it kind of blends into the top of the head and then just on the very edge of the top of the ear. Don't worry about seams. We're gonna blend that all out later. This is just like the building block stage. I'm adding little snakies of that modeling chocolate around the outer part of the ear as well and just blending that out. I'm doing this because I want to have it tapered down to the board, and I want it to be really thin so that later when I am adding some notches and some texture, I don't have to worry about knocking that out of cake, if you know what I mean. This just makes it a little bit easier for me to get the details that I want without having to worry about the cake poking through, crumbs, etc., etc. I'm just using my fingers and my small fondant tool to rub out the seams. Again, you don't have to really stress about it because luckily elephants are really textured, but I like the cohesive look. So I'm just trying to do that as I go along and just redoing the top there, getting that little cartilage rim. With my soft fondant tool, I'm starting to notch out the bottom of the ear, just little pieces, rounding them out, and on the sides as well, because as much as I want to believe that elephants just live this beautiful, happy existence, I know they get in fights, stuff happens to them, they get all roughed up sometimes, and their ears just get a little bit of damage just on the edge, so that's what I'm doing. I'm also just marking in some divots with my fingers, just so it's not completely flat. I'm adding the pieces for where the tusk would go in. So I have this ball of my modeling chocolate and I flattened one side of that against my work surface. And I'm just blending the top of that into my cake, trying to make sure they're roughly the same size. I don't think they were exactly symmetrical, but I did my best. They're slightly angled up and you can see the bottom of them basically lines up with where the trunk starts. With the back of my fondant tool, I'm marking in the defining line, like where that front piece sticks out and then the cheek behind it, if that makes sense, and then bringing that up towards the eye. This is important because it's going to create more depth in the face and it's going to make it appear more 3D. I just took my time with this and looked at my reference photo and then tried to get the other side to match. It took me a couple tries, and if you feel like you don't have enough to work with, you can just bulk it out a little bit with more of that modeling chocolate. That's the beautiful thing of modeling chocolate. It blends into each other really nicely. So even if you've been working on it for a while and you're thinking it's a little bit lackluster, you can still fix it, smooth it out, add a little bit more, shave some of it off, and it usually comes together really nicely. I'm just marking in where more of the deep set lines in the face are, just mapping it out a little bit. I'm going to come back to those, but I wanted to make sure I had a rough idea of where they were going to come down. And then to start on the eye, I have a ball of my white modeling chocolate that I'm adding in place and just flattening that down a little bit. With some gray snakies of modeling chocolate, I'm just defining the eyelids. I want like an almond shape for the eye, so it's tapered quite tightly towards the center. I added a larger piece to build out the brow bone and just blended that into the top of the head, but I did leave, you can see a little peek of that eyelid underneath. They've got a lot of wrinkles around their eye, so again, you don't have to worry about leaving behind texture or lines because I'm basically going to be adding that later. I just want to get the rough shape down. I'm adding a couple bags underneath, and you can see here, I thought it was a little bit too much on the top, so I'm going in with my knife and just shaving some of that down, and then just smoothing it away like it never happened. To finish the shape of the trunk, I'm building out the bottom, so I have another piece I'm adding and just blending that into the pre-existing trunk, and I've tapered it down and I'm curling that into the shape that I want. So this is what I had when I was done. I know it's not like 100% accurate elephant anatomy, but I really thought that it was looking good at this point. I took the time here to blend out any of the seams that I didn't think would be hidden by my texturizing in the next step. And if I thought anything was too bulky, I shaved it down, smoothed it out. If I thought I didn't add enough, I just smoothed on more modeling chocolate. It's very forgiving, and this is the stage where you want to really perfect all of the details of the structure of the face. So for the first layer of texture, I'm going to be using a piece of parchment paper that I've crumpled up, and I'm just going to be pressing that over the whole cake. If you find that it's too hard or it's not really picking up the texture you're trying to put down, you can hit the whole thing with a hairdryer just for a couple seconds, nothing crazy. You don't want to melt the chocolate, but you can soften it this way, and then you can get all that texture on there that you want. I'm using my balling tool to hollow out the very bottom of, what are these things? The tuskies? I don't know where the tusks are gonna go in there, just so I have a place to place them, because I want it to look like the tusks are coming out of them versus just like flush against them. Using both my soft and hard fondant tool, I'm going in and adding lines, just texture all over the place. I want to add big lines, little lines. They are basically a big ball of wrinkles. You can't really go wrong here. You don't want to have too many really deep set lines. Those are the ones that I did on the face, but basically you can just kind of have at her. So once I was happy with it, I took a fluffy brush and some black color dust and did a light layer over the whole thing. And this is going to really start to bring out all of that texture that we laid down. Once I was done with that overall layer, I went back in and added a deeper concentration of my color dust anywhere where there'd be a natural shadow on the face. So underneath the curve of the ear and around the sides of the face, all the little nooks and crannies, I just deepened that a little bit. I used a finer tipped paintbrush to get into all the little tight areas, like the deep set lines that I made and all the little nooks and crannies, because if you don't use that, if you just use the fluffy brush, you're just gonna pass over those deep lines, and we want those to be accentuated with shadow. For the eyes, I brushed over the whole eyeball with my black, just concentrating it more in the center, just leaving a little peak of that white on either side. And then I lined the top and the bottom with one more little snaky of that gray modeling chocolate and blended that out, and then added a couple lines underneath and up top just for some more bang. I added a piece of dried spaghetti into each side where the tusks are gonna sit, and then I rolled out this long tapered shape of white and just pressed it in place. You can see I've got a bit of that gray modeling chocolate underneath one of the tusks just to help it dry in place. These set really firm, so after about 10 minutes you can take that away and they'll stay. So I added a couple more lines into the forehead and then just touched up anywhere I thought it needed a little more brushing with my black color dust. And this was the final result, guys. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. I surprised myself a little bit. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that it was helpful for you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will be putting out new tutorials every week from here on out. No more big breaks, I promise.